She thought my garage was just another shared feature of the neighborhood. Parked in it like it was hers. Didn't knock. Didn't ask. Didn't even think twice about leaving the door wide open like my property was some overflow lot for HOA royalty. And when I told her, politely at first, that it was mine, that it was listed on my deed, that I paid taxes on it, maintained it, insured it, she smirked. Said, well, no one was using it. As if that made it hers. As if my silence was permission. But see, Karen didn't know what I know. She didn't know that garage was locked under my name at the county clerk's office. She didn't know I had cameras in the rafters. She didn't know I'd already printed a full file from my attorney. So I didn't argue. I didn't scream or write angry emails. I just did 3 things. I locked it, shut it down, and then I booked a 2-week vacation she'd never forget. Because if she wanted to park like she owned it, she could learn what it felt like to be on the other side of a locked door. If someone can walk into your garage and claim it's theirs because they live nearby, what happens when you don't fight back? What happens when silence is mistaken for surrender? When your name on a deed doesn't matter to people who think their clipboard carries more weight than the law. She thought she could park, pretend, walk away. No big deal, just a space, right? Just a garage nobody was using. But here's what people like her never understand. It's never just about the garage. It's about the principle, the line, the right to decide who steps onto your property and who doesn't. Because when someone starts claiming your space without asking, they're not borrowing convenience. They're stealing control. And if you let them, they'll do it again and again. She thought I'd cave, that I'd shrug it off, that I'd let her twist the rules until her story sounded louder than my title. But I don't let anyone rewrite where my boundaries begin. Not with a key, not with a smile, and especially not with a car that doesn't belong in my space. I moved into the unit 6 months ago. It was a quiet little development. Townhomes stacked in rows with cookie-cutter shrubs, picket fences that stopped exactly 4 feet tall, and an HOA that prided itself on aesthetically harmonious living. I didn't buy for the community. I bought for the garage, separate from the unit. A detached structure tucked at the end of a side lane, but it came with the deed, fair and square. 1 car, high-ceilinged, solid concrete slab, private access, my name on the title, and tucked far enough away from the main road to feel like my own outpost. It was perfect. At least it was, until Karen found it. The first time it happened, I thought I was imagining things. I came home late from a long weekend, pulled into my driveway, and looked down the lane. My garage door, the one with my unit number on it, was wide open. Inside was a car I didn't recognize. Silver SUV. Plates from in-state, but definitely not mine. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe someone parked there to unload something. Maybe a neighbor had work done and the contractor confused units. Maybe the HOA maintenance crew used it temporarily. I parked, got out, walked down. As I approached, a woman was just stepping out of the SUV, holding a yoga mat and grocery bag like she'd done this every day of her life. She looked up at me, smiled. Oh, hey, you must be new here. I'm Karen. I live across the cul-de-sac. Unit 3B. I nodded slowly. Nice to meet you. This is my garage. She blinked, smile still on. Oh, I know. We just thought it was overflow parking. The board mentioned that some garages were community accessible unless you'd filed for exclusive use. She waved toward the lane. Nobody was using it. You hadn't parked in it for weeks. So we figured, better it gets used than just sit empty. I looked at her like she'd just claimed my living room was public lounge space. It's deeded property, I said. It came with the unit when I bought it. She tilted her head. Well, you'd have to talk to the HOA about that. They manage the community guidelines, and technically, we're allowed to reassign and use common spaces unless otherwise filed. She stepped around me, yoga mat swinging behind her like a tale of smug authority. I stared at the open garage. My garage. I didn't say another word. I just pulled out my phone, turned on the camera, and took 3 slow photos, one of her car, one of the license plate, and one of the door wide open. The next morning, I emailed the HOA. Short and simple. Hello. I've noticed an unauthorized vehicle parked inside my private garage. Please confirm that my garage, Unit 4C, Garage 4CG, is recorded as deeded private property and not community-owned space. Attached is a photo. Best. Name. No reply that day. Or the next. On the third day, I got a boilerplate message from the HOA manager. Thanks for your message. We are looking into this concern and will review property designations accordingly. Please note that shared garage structures may be subject to temporary overflow usage in alignment with community harmony guidelines. Community harmony. That phrase again. Like my property was a decoration they could rearrange when it suited them. That night, I changed the lock. Simple bolt slide from inside. Garage door opener disconnected. Manual entry only. And then I checked the one thing Karen forgot about. My camera. I'd installed it when I moved in, a small motion-activated device in the back corner, pointed toward the entrance. Pulled the SD card, plug it into my laptop, and watched 2 weeks of uninvited access. Karen, multiple times. Sometimes alone, sometimes with friends. Sometimes she'd pull in for 30 minutes, sometimes for hours. I watched her open the trunk, load groceries, sit in the front seat while scrolling on her phone, even store a stack of bins, one of which she neatly tucked in the corner like it belonged there. She'd claimed the space, not as an accident, not for convenience. She thought she owned it, and now that I had the footage, I knew exactly what I'd do next. IT would have been one thing if Karen had been embarrassed, if she'd apologized, if she'd stopped. But Karen didn't just continue parking in my garage, she escalated. And worse, the HOA covered for her. A week after I confronted her and changed the lock, I received an official email from the HOA's Community Harmony Committee. No greeting, no apology, no resolution. Just this. We've received mixed communication regarding garage space 4CG. Due to confusion surrounding ownership of detached garage structures, please refrain from any unilateral action until we've completed a property designation review. Residents are advised not to alter or obstruct shared use areas until clarification is made. They were telling me to unlock my own garage and let Karen back in. I sat back in my chair and pulled out the paperwork. I still had the buyer's packet from closing, everything stamped, initialed, and notarized. Title page 14, Garage 4CG, Fee Simple Ownership, included in parcel. Title page 26, not governed under shared HOA utility or facility code. It was black and white, plain as day. No ambiguity, no overflow clause, no shared access provision. The garage was mine, but the HOA didn't care. 2 days later, I walked out to grab my mail and noticed something strange. A half-folded flyer in every mailbox on the street. Cream-colored paper with a Ridge View HOA logo in the corner and a single sentence beneath it. Reminder, overflow parking access in designated garages remains temporarily valid. Unit 3B granted short-term use of 4CG due to HOA miscommunication. I stared at it in disbelief. Not only were they allowing her to keep using it, they were making it sound like I was the one out of line. Like I was some recluse hoarding a piece of shared property out of spite. I took a photo of the flyer, pulled out my phone, and started composing an email to my real estate attorney. Because if the HOA wasn't going to listen to reason, they were about to listen to someone who bills by the hour. But Karen? She didn't need the law. She had rumors. Suddenly, neighbors who once waved politely started avoiding eye contact. I overheard 2 women by the mailbox whispering, "He doesn't even park in it. He's just being difficult." Someone left a note on my door. "You knew when you moved here, this was a shared community." Selfishness isn't a good look. They thought I was the problem. Karen was telling people I'd locked up a garage nobody was using just to be petty. She even told one neighbor that I was renting it out for personal gain, which made no sense. She was the one using it. But logic didn't matter. Perception did. And Karen knew how to work a crowd. Meanwhile, I kept documenting. Every time I passed the garage, I took a photo. Every time Karen left the door ajar or dragged in another one of her blue storage bins, I logged it. One morning, I found the garage door unlocked again. A folding table and a portable dog crate were now inside, as if it were a personal extension of her home. She even started referring to it, audibly, as my extra space. Not the garage, not the borrowed spot. My extra space. I felt something shift in that moment, because up to then, I'd thought she was just being entitled. Annoying, yes. Pushy. Condescending. But now I saw the long game. This wasn't just about a place to park. This was about claiming it, normalizing it, making it routine so that when the paperwork eventually got lost in some HOA filing cabinet, her story would be the one that stood, and mine would be erased. I called the police, laid everything out calmly, the deed, the flyers, the video clips, the unauthorized entry. The officer on the phone sighed. Sounds like a civil matter, sir. If there's no sign of forced entry and you've got an HOA involved, it's likely a dispute between property rights and association usage policies. But it's my property. That's what court is for. Translation? You're on your own. I considered filing a small claims action, but I wasn't ready for court. Not yet, because court means waiting, and I was done waiting. That evening, I stood outside the garage with the sun dipping low behind the rooftops. The structure looked ordinary. Cement floor, dusty overhead beams, roll-up door. But in that moment, it felt like the last square inch of unchallenged ground I had left in this neighborhood. And I realized something. Karen didn't care about the garage. Not really. She cared about what it represented. Control. Entitlement. The ability to say, I live here, so I get to bend the rules. And the moment I let her keep it, she'd never stop. So I made a plan. Something quiet. Something legal. Something she wouldn't see coming. She wanted to test boundaries? Fine. I would draw one so deep that when she crossed it, she'd hear the door lock behind her. The next morning, before the sun even cleared the rooftops, I stopped at the hardware store, picked up a reinforced padlock, a secondary internal deadbolt, and a pack of private property, no trespassing signs. Then I went home, grabbed a printed copy of my deed, highlighted in bright yellow where it read Garage 4CG, included in parcel, fee simple ownership, and taped it right to the center of the garage door. Just below it, I added, private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted. This garage is not part of HOA jurisdiction. Any unauthorized access will be reported. Then I screwed in the padlock hardware, tested the bolt, and stepped back to admire my work. Simple, quiet, legally bulletproof. Next stop, email. I drafted a formal notice to the HOA and CC Karen's public board email. Subject, legal notification of property rights, Garage 4CG. Attached you will find title documents clearly showing my legal ownership of Garage 4CG. This structure is not HOA maintained, shared, or designated as overflow parking by any legal standard. Any future unauthorized use by HOA members, including but not limited to resident Karen last name, will result in legal escalation. This notice has been filed for record. No emotion, no begging, just documents and consequences. Later that evening, I heard the knock. No, not a knock, a pounding. 3 heavy thuds on my front door, spaced like a heartbeat. I opened it halfway. Karen stood there, lips tight, arms crossed, eyes already halfway into war. Did you seriously lock it? I said nothing. She gestured furiously toward the garage. My car is in there. I glanced past her, feigning confusion. Oh, the one you parked in a garage you don't own, without asking, even after you were told to stop. The HOA said I had temporary rights. The HOA doesn't own my deed. It was a mistake that lasted 3 weeks. She stepped forward like she might push her way in. I didn't flinch. I've contacted my attorney, I said calmly. Everything that happens from this point on is documented. You can't just trap someone's car. I didn't trap it. You trespassed on her private property and left it there. What happens now is a consequence. She stood frozen for a beat, chest heaving. Then she actually hissed, and stormed off, dialing her phone as she stomped. The next day, the HOA sent me a community conduct warning. Apparently, I was creating tension within the neighborhood by uncooperatively modifying shared use spaces. They suggested I attend a resolution hearing to discuss a compromise. I forwarded the email to my lawyer with a single line. Do I need to show up for this nonsense? He wrote back, absolutely not. They're bluffing. Stay calm. Let them dig their own hole. So I stayed calm and started packing. 2 days later, I booked my trip. 2 weeks away, quiet mountain cabin, offline, peaceful. But before I left, I made one last upgrade. I installed a smart sensor inside the garage. Motion activated, fully wireless, connected to my phone via LTE. Then I installed a manual deadbolt on the inside, accessible only from within the garage wall. I disconnected the automatic opener entirely. No keypad, no remote, no app, no access. It was sealed, legally, surgically, and completely. Then I left. No warning, no announcement, no forwarding address. I packed my bag, locked my front door, and drove out of town with the sun rising behind me and Karen's SUV still sitting, unattended inside my garage. And the best part? The smart sensor would tell me exactly how many times she tried to break back in. I was exactly 4 days into my vacation when the first message came in. Blocked number. Voicemail. Karen, hey, so, we really need to talk about the garage. I didn't realize you were going out of town, and, well, my car's still in there, and I need it. I deleted it. 2 hours later, another voicemail. Different tone. Sharper. Look, this isn't funny anymore. You can't just trap someone's car in your garage like that. That's illegal. I've already spoken to the HOA, and they're contacting legal counsel. Then came the emails. From the HOA board this time. We've been informed there is a vehicle inside garage 4CG, and the owner is unable to retrieve it. We kindly request you unlock the space so we may resolve this matter amicably. Then another. Urgent reminder. HOA regulations require cooperative use of shared structures. Please respond immediately to avoid escalation. And another. And another. I responded once. Just once. Subject, garage access inquiry. Body. Garage 4CG is legally deeded private property, not subject to HOA jurisdiction. The vehicle inside was parked without permission. I'll be back in 13 days. I'll unlock it then. No sign-off. No apology. Just a timestamp. And the law. Back at the cabin, I check my smart sensor logs every night before bed. Motion detected. 2:14 p.m. Attempted external entry. Motion detected. 5:31 p.m. Sustained force at door panel. Motion detected. 9:22 a.m. Unauthorized access attempt with tools. I reviewed the footage. Karen, wearing gloves, holding bolt cutters. She tried the hinges, then the lock, then the bottom seam of the door. The sensor triggered the floodlight I installed inside. She dropped the cutters. Ran. Day 9. HOA sends an official letter. Due to escalating tension surrounding Garage 4CG, we're considering holding an emergency vote to determine whether detached garages should be integrated into the HOA shared asset pool. I printed the email, flagged it, forwarded it to my lawyer. Subject, retaliation. His reply, perfect. Let them keep digging. Day 13. I returned. Calm, rested, ready. Pulled into the driveway right around noon. HOA president and Karen were both waiting outside the garage like kids at the principal's office. Karen looked like she hadn't slept in a week. HOA president, a middle-aged man named Glenn with a tie too tight for summer heat, stepped forward. We'd really like to resolve this peacefully. I nodded, pulled out my keys. Karen stiffened as I approached the lock. Her eyes darted to the garage like she half expected sirens to start wailing. I turned the key, unclipped the padlock, released the bolt, pulled the door open. Dust, cobwebs. Karen's SUV, slumped low on dead tires, battery drained, pollen coating every inch like nature's judgment. The silence was glorious. I took a slow step back, motioned toward the vehicle. There's your car. HOA wanted transparency? There you go. Karen didn't speak. She just stared at the car like it had aged a decade in 2 weeks. I handed Glenn a manila envelope. Inside you'll find a copy of the garage deed, title records, video footage of attempted break-ins, 2 cease and desist warnings, and a formal notice stating that any future entry onto my property without my consent will result in civil court action. He didn't even open it, just nodded. Karen opened her car door, slid in, and click, dead. She tried again. Nothing. I stepped away, back to my porch, sat down, watched as the HOA called a tow truck. Later that evening, I got one final HOA email. Short, no header image, no fancy formatting, just this. Following recent events, The HOA board has revised policy language to clarify that all detached garage units are the legal responsibility and property of their deeded owners. Shared use assumptions have been eliminated. Please accept our apologies for any prior miscommunication. Karen? I haven't heard a word since. No knocks. No flyers. No smug wave from across the street. She parks in her own driveway now. And when she passes the garage, she looks away. Because sometimes the loudest confrontation isn't the one you yell through a door. It's the one where you control the lock, the law, and the time it takes to teach a lesson the garage hasn't been touched since. Not by Karen. Not by anyone. Not without knocking first. And that's exactly how it should be. The new lock is digital. A smart deadbolt synced to my phone with its own motion alerts and access log. I installed a reinforced frame too, just for peace of mind. Nothing flashy. Nothing aggressive, just clear, like the line that was always there, even when no one else wanted to see it. A small camera watches the door now. Not because I expect trouble, but because I believe in remembering what it took to earn your boundaries. People don't test it anymore. They don't need to. The garage itself is cleaner now. Empty except for a tool rack, a folding workbench, and a few crates of gear I actually use. Sometimes I park my car there. Sometimes I don't. But the point is, it's mine, and no one in this neighborhood forgets that anymore. A week after I returned, the HOA issued a full bylaw revision. Quietly, no ceremony, no press release. One paragraph buried in the monthly email. All shared use claims regarding detached garages, side structures, and storage units now require written documentation from the deeded owner, submitted and approved in advance by the board. Past assumptions of communal access will no longer be recognized. It didn't mention me by name, but everybody knew. I'd become a guy who drew the line and made it stick. It surprised me how quickly the tone of the neighborhood shifted after that. People who used to wave with judgment now nodded with respect. A couple of homeowners even stopped me while I was watering the lawn. Hey, I heard what happened. Glad you stood your ground. They tried to pull something like that with my shed years ago. I printed my deed and taped it to my fence just in case. Funny how boundaries suddenly become sacred when someone fights hard enough to remind people they matter. Karen stopped attending HOA meetings. Stopped walking past my unit. Her car, once so casually rolled into my garage, hasn't been within 10 feet of my driveway since. I'm not angry anymore. I don't need to be, because anger fades. But boundaries? Those stay. Now, when new neighbors move in, they ask me about property lines. Ask me where to get copies of their plat maps. Ask me what fee simple means in their title. And I help them. No clipboard. No fine print. Just clarity. I never set out to become the neighborhood's quiet legal compass. But sometimes, standing your ground teaches others where theirs begins. The garage stands exactly where it always has. But now, so does everything else. My peace. My name. My rights, and the quiet, simple truth. What was once shared is now respected. Line drawn, permanently. She thought it was just a garage, just a little space no one would miss. A door no one had touched in weeks. A spot she could claim because no one had said the word no, not loudly enough, anyway. But when someone treats your property like it's theirs, it's not about parking anymore. It's about control. It's about rewriting the rules under the cover of community. It's about testing how quiet you'll stay before you finally speak up. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I didn't storm down the street with a bullhorn. I just locked the door and let the silence speak for me. Because that silence, that was power. Measured, lawful, undeniable. You don't have to raise your voice to set a boundary. Sometimes all it takes is a bolt, a vacation, and the truth on paper. And when they come knocking again, clipboard in hand, assumptions loaded, you'll already know the answer. It's written in the deed. It's signed in ink. And this time, you're the only one holding the key.